What's up, LEGO builders? Welcome back to Coconut Brick Studios. I've built just about every clone battle, ambush, and boxing match of the Clone Wars, but I've never really narrowed in and followed the life of a clone or clones for more than a mock or two. And being a trooper for the Republic isn't exactly your average desk job. Riding weird animals or fighting buff battle droids is just the tip of the iceberg. So today, we're following the lives of a squad of special clones all the way from their training days on Kamino to the dark moments of Order 66. Speaking of Order 66, you know what to do on that like button, and let's get started. Every clone's life begins at the same place, Kamino. So that's where I'm starting today, but I'm not building the iconic incubator rooms or computer classes we see in Attack of the Clones. Instead, I'm pulling from the Clone Wars TV show for inspiration. One arc of episodes follows a group of clones called Domino Squad. They're first seen training in one of the Kaminoans' massive simulation rooms with droids and other obstacles thrown at them as they try to complete a mission called the Citadel. I thought building a training room exercise would be a good way to introduce the clone squad we'll be following through the Clone Wars. These rooms are very unique in the fact that they're mostly empty except for raised up walls and plateaus to provide barricades and obstacles for various trainings. The entire place is covered in a grid layout of squares, and I'm not going to try and recreate the design exactly, but build something similar that will hopefully be reminiscent of the source material. At one end of the mock will be a series of panels that when combined will create a trough or mini hallway leading to the other end of the build. This will split off into two separate paths going around another plateau. This should hopefully add enough detail and variation to this so far very simple mock to allow me to tell a compelling story. I'm trying to keep these builds as simple as possible because the story is going to be the main focus, and I've got 3 more mocks to make and I don't want this to be a 15-minute video. Think of these as set pieces for a movie. I just need enough to set the stage and your imaginations will do the rest. There's a spot for ARC troopers and other high-ranking people to watch the training exercises from a safe distance, so I'm going to build a tall balcony overlooking the mock. Normally this would be built into the wall of the training room, but I'm not building the whole wall, just the part holding the observation deck. It'll be a long tower with a rounded balcony at the top. And just for having thrown this together in a few minutes, I'm really impressed with how it looks. Once the tower's done, it'll be attached to one end of the build. Now I can add the droids and other weapons going up against the valiant squad of clones, and now it's time to meet Rhino Company. The Clone Wars have begun, and thousands of clones are being trained and prepared to be deployed throughout the galaxy to combat the droid armies of the CIS. But fighting a galactic war means sending troops into very different environments, from dry deserts to underwater assaults. To help deal with the diverse battlefields, huge training centers were created capable of simulating any type of scenario or environment. Today's challenge, an overwhelmed squad of clones. Separated and pinned up against a wall, these troopers are about to be finished off by training droids when Rhino Company is unleashed. Trained specifically for dire situations like this, they immediately leap forward, cutting off the droids' flanking maneuvers and regrouping the scattered clones. Instead of returning to the main force, however, one clone continues to charge forward, commandeering an E-Web cannon and quickly cutting down the remaining droids. Up above, ARC Trooper Colt and a young Jedi General watch the simulation with interest. As Colt explains, they've been trained to work as a unit but also act on their own intuition, making them very deadly both as a group or alone. They have a 95% simulation success rate, but the extra levels of autonomy can make them hard to rein in, and they're prone to questioning orders. Multiple Jedi Masters have already refused command of this company for those reasons. I've heard of their reputation, the young Jedi Muses, and that's precisely why I'm here. I want to get these clones into action as soon as possible, so this next mock will depict their first deployment into action. While I'm building it, I want to give a little backstory on how Rhino Company came to be. Like many of you, I've always enjoyed coming up with custom clones and their backstories. I even painted this trooper back in the day and named him Commander Raptor. I know painting clones is a sin, but it seems to be a rite of passage we all went through as kids. Anyways, I've always wanted my own custom group of clones with a simple design using only official LEGO parts. That way it would be accessible to other people who wanted to build some for their own armies. I saw this really cool Reek-inspired ATTE a few years back, and while trying to figure out how to build one, I had the idea to create clones with colors inspired from the Reek. So I put a red Phase 1 captain's helmet on a clone with dark bluish gray arms, and thus Rhino Company was born. I went with Rhino instead of Reek because, well, Reek Company just sounds like what Meebar and his droids probably smelled like after meeting Gregor for the first time. Their general is this Cyclops Jedi who I randomly built in the perfect complementing colors and has yet to be named. Someone suggested having coconut bricks in the name somehow, and I thought that was a cool idea, so if you have any suggestions, drop them in the comments. As far as the timeline goes, they were still in training during the Battle of Geonosis, but saw replays of the arena fight and heard tales of the mighty Rancor and its unstoppable nature from the Jedi who survived. Wanting to instill a similar aura and mindset in their own ranks, the members of Rhino Company painted their armor and decked out their war machines to strike terror in the hearts and circuits of any foes unfortunate to go up against them in battle. Their first task is one that requires both boldness and precision, since they're being dropped into a landing zone controlled by droids who have grouped themselves around a very sacred shrine. If the Republic hopes to secure any kind of long-term presence on the planet and a good relationship with the locals, they need to take the shrine without damaging it too much. Things are not going well on Saluecami. The clones' initial push towards the tree line of their landing zone has been halted by the presence of a menacing AAT, while back in the trees, 2 droid E-Web cannons are dropping clones like flies. Normally, a separatist defensive line like this would get a bombing run or two to soften things up before ground troops move in, but there's a sacred shrine in the middle of the droid's position that cannot be destroyed. Officers are trying to rally the clones, but it's looking like the clones' line is about to break when Rhino Company is dropped into support. Dashing up to the front, they quickly assume tactical positions to distract the AAT and call in their ride. A slightly modified ATTE comes roaring in via dropship, literally landing on the droid forces as the anti-personnel cannons get to work. The ensuing chaos allows their Jedi General to sneak along the rock wall guarding the shrine and take the droid emplacements inside by surprise. Once surrounded, the rest of the droids don't put up much of a fight, and the shrine has been secured in one piece in the name of the Republic. I still plan on many Rhino Company mocs coming after this video, but I know this one in particular needs to end with Order 66. It's at the back of any clone lover's mind when building or watching the Clone Wars. We all know how this ends, and it's pretty dark and sad. So as I've been planning the lore for Rhino Company, I've thought about how to prepare for an Order 66 scene and what I want to happen. This next mock isn't going to be the most action-packed, but we'll have a lot of setup in it for the climax of this story. And I finally get to expand on a story idea I came up with last year while building a clone base on Kashyyyk. I'm also trying to scale down the size of this one since the first 2 were so big, and I'm trying to pace myself. Sometimes I get too ambitious at the beginning of a project and do too much to where I have to rush or shorten the ending to get it out on time. And I can't have that happen this time because these last 2 mocks are very important to the overall story. We're about halfway through the challenge, and I'm curious to know what you think of this style of video. More story driven and less focused on mock building. Also, if you have any other life of blank type videos you'd like to see me make in the future, leave them below in the comments. This particular mission is taking us to the dense and wild jungles of Kashyyyk. I seem to be building that planet a lot recently. Maybe it's an omen of things to come. I've built a swamp at one end, and lining it will be olive green plants. One of my favorite aspects of building outdoor mocks is getting to designate what the terrain is like by using certain plants. They can tell us if the ground is supposed to be soggy and wet, if it's dark and rich, full of fern beds and bamboo groves, or if it's dry and arid, like Ryloth. This one is going to have some swampy ground giving way to a grassy island, protected on one side by some bamboo and ferns on the other side. It's a nice little safe haven, or a deadly corner to be backed into depending on your situation. The rest of the ground will be covered up by grass. I'm almost done setting the stage and just need a few more plants and some very wet minifigs, and we are ready to see Rhino Company's trial by fire. While deep in the jungles of Kashyyyk performing recon, Rhino Company is set upon by a deadly ambush. Massive crab droids burst from the swampy waters, and battle droids pour in surrounding the clones. Too far to call an air support or backup, they are up to their necks in trouble, forced to wade back into the swampy water, saved only by the heroics of their Jedi General, who boldly leapt around from rock to rock, dismantling droids until he brought his lightsaber crashing down through the head of the last crab droid. Wet and exhausted, the remains of his beleaguered squad pull themselves from the mysterious swamp. Being lost in unfamiliar territory is the least of their problems though, because soon after the battle the clones fall ill with a raging fever from some unknown bacteria in the water. That would have been the end of this squad story had it not been for a remote tribe of Wookiees who saw the clones battle against the droids and offered to treat the sickened clones. Hovering on death's door, they lay by the swamp as Wookiees treat them with various herbs while the fever continues to burn through their bodies. After about a week it passed and the clones regained their strength, though some claim to feel lightheaded and have a throbbing headache on one side, but that soon faded, leaving only the occasional ghost of a whisper in their heads mentioning numbers over and over again. 66. 66. I've been feeling a lot of pressure surrounding this last mock and story. It's gonna wrap up the video and of course has to be about Order 66. That's a part of the Clone Wars you don't just gloss over, but I'm not sure what I want to happen to my Jedi and his valiant Rhino Company. I still have a lot of stories to tell, and if I want to do anything in the Imperial era, I need to come up with some good explanations here. But with that being said, it's time for Palpatine to execute Order 66. It's a dark and stormy day as Rhino Company battles a large droid force outside the ruins of an ancient temple. The Separatists have made a massive push on this fuel-rich planet, destroying the clones' main base and forcing the remaining Jedi and clones into the jungle. They've made a last stand here, but things are grim. As Rhino Company fends off wave after wave, out of the gloom, another Jedi materializes. Cutting through the back ranks, he's able to surprise the droidicas as his clones follow behind, mopping up the rest of the droids. No need to stop by, we had things under control. Rhino Company's general laughs. Sure you did, the other Jedi says, looking around at the carnage. We're about to cut into the droid's right flank and hopefully push them back into an acid swamp. Care to join us? But before either Jedi could reply, they were both hit with a psychic blow to the head. Screaming and blaster shots filled their minds as they dropped to their knees. Sir, are you— ah! Captain Tusk was reaching for his general when all of a sudden his head started throbbing. Garbled words filled the heads of Rhino Company, but as they stumbled, to their horror, they saw their clone brothers turn on their Jedi General. Without a moment's hesitation, they trained their blasters on him and opened fire. Even down on one knee, he was a force to be reckoned with. Deflecting blaster bolts everywhere, he managed to rise and flip over the heads of the clones. Shock and pain was etched into his face, and just then more clones poured out of the dark, gunning him down where he stood. "Sir, you need to get out of here," Tusk grits through his teeth as their general staggers back. "What's happening? What have they done?" he moans. The clones in the courtyard turn and open fire as Rhino Company closes in around their leader. "Get into the temple, run, hide. We'll come for you when it's safe." Brother fought against brother that day as the clones of Rhino Company leapt forward, defending the Jedi who had treated them like family. Risked life and limb to keep his clones from becoming just another battlefield statistic. I haven't had this much fun making a video in a long time. As much as I love mock building, I really enjoyed focusing more on the lore for this one. Honestly, it was a challenge making the stories as short as I did. I feel like I could have focused a full video on each mock. But I hope this was all able to come together in a cohesive, entertaining manner for you. This is a new type of video format for me, so if you have any suggestions for how to improve, let me know. But that's a wrap for this one. Don't forget to let me know what you think of the mock and the story in the comments, and until next time, happy building.